When I was in middle school, maybe about 14, 15 years old, that's the first time that I imagined myself living abroad and moving abroad and leaving my home country. And you know, I'm not sure why I picked England. I'm really not sure if it's either destiny or just something about my life that told me to do it. But I imagined myself living there, and I was thinking about the rainy weather, about the people that I heard that they are very kind, they have an amazing sense of humor, and really great education for students there, and really amazing opportunities in that country. So that's when I first started thinking about moving there. I had a very, very close friend that already moved there in a town called Sheffield. And I agreed with him that, hey, we will move together, he will pay the rent, the food, all the bills, everything, until I find a job there. I started looking for jobs. I got rejected so many times. I started being desperate. I started looking for jobs in other areas. I applied for a job at Burger King, KFC, McDonald's, washing cars, in restaurants, anything you can imagine. I just tried everything I could just to stay in that country, just to not quit, not give up, and not come back home in Romania, you know, with the shame that, hey, that guy didn't make it. So that didn't work as well. It was already 2 months and a half since I moved to England. I was still depending on my friend to pay the bills and pay the food. Then, all of a sudden, he decided to invite another friend from our home country to live with us. And because of him living with us, there were 2 people depending on his salary now. And it was also, you know, him depending on his salary. It was quite tough. We had a couple of weeks of really big struggle with the food. And I remember there were days where we were so poor that we could afford just 1 lunch per day, so 1 meal per day, and we were planning it to have it somewhere in afternoon. When, you know, it's like middle of the day, you can resist until middle of the day. You can also try to resist from middle of the day to evening until night. It was horrible. I lost so much weight during those few weeks of this. On top of that, our internet bill was cut off completely. We had 2 weeks of no internet. I was going every day in the shopping mall we had there from morning till evening, connected to the Wi-Fi that they had, looking for jobs. I even applied to the ones for cleaning toilets in different buildings. And not even for that I got a phone call, you know, it was just insane. So eventually my friend told me that I need to leave the house, and he will basically kick me out because he couldn't afford to pay for both me and the other guy. And since I was there for already 2 months and a half and I didn't find a job, he considered that the other guy, you know, deserves a chance to stay there longer with him and that I should leave. So there was that. And then we had a big fight. After that big fight, I moved all my stuff, my backpack, my trolley, everything from his room, where I was sharing the bed with him, and I moved to another room of the house, empty. I slept on the wood part of the bed. There was no mattress, absolutely anything. It was a completely empty room. And I had those conditions for about a week. I slept either on the floor or on the wood, and it was extremely painful for my back. You know, it was just horrible. My back was hurting like hell every day, but I had nothing else. I was using my trolley as a pillow to sleep. I texted a friend from Romania and I told him that, hey, I'm desperately looking for a job here in England. You lived here at some point. Do you know by any chance someone that can give me anything just in order for me to stay in that country, you know, just to not give up on my dream of living there? So my friend told me about a recruitment agency from London that was led by an Indian person. He gave me the phone number. I called him and I told him that I'm looking for a job and I can start right away. The catch is that I'm looking for accommodation as well. And he told me that, yeah, I have a restaurant somewhere around London in the suburbs, so whenever you're ready, just come here, come to my office, let's have a talk, and then you can just go there. The catch was that there was no work contract, everything was, how do you say it in English, when it's not official paperwork done.
How would you say it in Romanian?
In Romanian, muncă la negru, we would say, yeah, working in black, kind of. He was living in first floor, and I remember the feeling I had once I got into the building. I just felt like, this is wrong. I'm doing something wrong. I shouldn't be here, but I'm still desperate to look for a job. So the place looked extremely creepy, It had so many old computers from the 70s or 80s, I think. They were just yellow, It wasn't no white on the monitors or the keyboard. It was completely yellow. Huge spider webs everywhere. It just felt like that place was like a ghost town. And I'm trusting this guy to help me find a job. Who knows where? Who knows with whom? But it was the only thing I had left. There was no other straw I could take, no other card I had. He told me that he has an Indian restaurant in a little town called Braintree, which is like 1 hour and a half from center of London. Extremely small town, smallest town I've ever been in. So yeah, I was just shocked how I got from big cities to this place, like just out of this world. I met there the owner. I gave them my ID card. They did some sort of paperwork, although it was, like I said, muncă la negru. I don't know what they did with it, no idea. And then I met my colleagues, my co-workers in the kitchen. It was plenty of guys from Bangladesh and India. All of them very hardworking, extremely kind and good people. It was a pleasure working with most of them, I'd say. After that, I just went upstairs. I left there my trolley and my luggage and everything. And then I just changed my clothes in the uniform, and then I just started work there. It was a bit tough. Like, I had a couple of jobs at that point in life already where I was working like 10, 14 hours per day back in high school. But man, that job was really tough. Like, for 2,000-3,000 people population, those people were eating Indian food every day. And there were so many clients coming, it was just a chaos in the kitchen. And I remember sometimes during the evenings, there were so many orders that all of a sudden I had like 20 extra pans to wash. All of a sudden the guy, the chef would come to me with them and just smack them there in the sink, and they were extremely hot. But I had to move fast and wash them because they needed them fast in order to cook again,
The plates were hot.
The plates were extremely hot, yeah. And I had to move fast to wash them because they kept coming and coming and coming. And if you just stop for a second, you would just add up in a huge mountain. And imagine I had 2 sinks, this size, and they were all full. All the time they were full, and I was struggling. And I learned later that they had 2 guys doing the dishes and helping the chef in the kitchen. They had 2 guys. They fired them, and they thought that I can do the job of 2 people. Happens often that you see this kind of employers, but I don't know what they think when they do these decisions. Just saving money, I guess, for the paychecks.
Saying they're like, this guy's in a desperate situation, so.
Yeah. Let's just give him all the load. I'm sure he will find his fresh blood. Yeah, and I had serious cuts from those moments, from that job. My hands were just hurting.
Physical cuts.
Physical cuts, yeah, physical cuts, and because of the hotness of the pans, it was just extremely bad. And then you would say, okay, why didn't you wear some gloves? Well, I tried, but you couldn't. I don't know. I just felt like I couldn't wash the dishes in the same way if I was doing it with the gloves, because there was the grease from the pans and the plates and everything. It wasn't the same. Yeah. So well, it was that. I worked my ass off for like 14, 15 hours every day, and after a week of that, I had a day off. Before that day off, one day before that day off, I decided that I just cannot do this anymore. All the workload that there was there just for one person, just for me, to wash all those dishes and help them in the kitchen was way too much. I barely had any break during the work time, well, almost no break. I was eating my food after 12 in the midnight after finishing work, and sometimes we were finishing at 1, 2 a.m. although the restaurant was closing at 12. Because all the time that you would spend afterwards just cleaning and wrapping up and everything, it was crazy. And then the next day you would wake up again at, 8 or 9 a.m. and then just prepare for another day. It was hell. And there was that. There was the back pain that I had from, bending over the sink to wash the dishes. And the accommodation that we had there, man, it was terrible. How many people were we? I think we were about 10 people. Both the waiters and me and the chef and the other kitchen helpers, and we were splitting just 3 rooms among us, and I had a corner of I guess 7 square meters. That was my part of room that I was sharing with other 2 guys, and that was it. And we had no heating. It was end of January, so quite cold, I would say. We had a huge hole at the front door of the accommodation through which the cold air would get in. After the first 2 days of sleeping there, I felt like I already had pneumonia or bronchitis or something. I was just coughing so bad. I was breathing very, very bad. It was just horrible. I don't know, it must have been from that, I think. So, I don't know, everything just made me think that this was a mistake. I really picked a bad card, although it was the only card I had. And on top of that, there was one girl back home in my hometown with whom I was not close friend, but let's say we were in good relationship for like 4 years at that moment. But in the past few months, since I was in England, we kept getting closer and closer to each other, although I wasn't there anymore. And I started falling in love with her and for her. And during that week in the Indian restaurant, I got the feeling that I should leave this job, this life, the country. I should go back home, find something else and then come back later in England, try again. And then I have this girl that I just want to be with. So everything added up to me deciding that it's enough. Like, I should just go back home. I should just quit, step back a little, and then come back more victorious later. So one day before leaving, I took my guts and I called my parents and I told them that I need money to come back home. And I was extremely embarrassed to admit it, that I failed, I failed so bad and I spent so much money there failing. So I was very anxious that my parents would not help me, or they would say no. But actually they helped me. Like, back then we were struggling with money a lot back home with my family, but they went to the pawn shop and my mother pawned her jewelry, her earrings and her necklace. It was the only things we had of value home, and they took that money and they sent it over to me with MoneyGram, and it was about 200 something pounds, so not much, but hopefully it was enough to afford the flight back home from England. So there was that, but then there was the problem: how would I leave this restaurant, and how would I do it without causing any problem? I talked to the owner of the restaurant in my last work day, and I told him that this is too much for me. I just cannot endure these conditions anymore, and this workload that I have here is just killing me. And he said, okay, but you need to stay 2 weeks in the notice period before leaving. And first of all, I was thinking, what the hell? Like, I don't even have a work contract and you tell me to stay 2 weeks. And on top of that, you fire 2 people and you put me to work there. And just give me. I gave all my blood and sweat in that work, and it was way too harsh, I would say, for one person.
Yeah, there's like no contract, but you want 2-week notice.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I don't know what he was thinking. So that evening, after I finished work, I waited for everyone to fall asleep, for my coworkers, and then I just packed my 2 trolleys and my backpack, and I was thinking to myself that in the morning I would wake up very early, I would take the trolleys to the train station, I would find there some locker where to store my trolleys. Then I would get back to the accommodation, to the restaurant. I would take my backpack, tell them that I'm going away to London for some, one-day trip, just to take some fresh air, something. I go to the train station, and there was no locker. There was absolutely no place where I could hide my trolleys. And I was looking around, and I was like, think, Cosmin, think. And then I saw a huge trash container. So I just looked around, there was no one. I just left them there in the trash bin. I just hid them there under the bags of trash. And then I just left them, hoping that no one would, take the container and throw away my clothes and everything. That was crazy, but that was the only option I had. I just didn't know where to keep them for a while. And I went back to the restaurant. There was one co-worker that I was close to. He was from Bangladesh, and during that week working there, he was the only one in the restaurant whom I was close to. And he kind of felt that something is a little wrong with me. And I think he also noticed that I don't have the trolleys anymore. He was the only one that noticed. I was sharing the room with him. So after I left the restaurant, he was right behind me, and he asked me, what am I doing? Where am I going? And I told him I'm leaving. I told him why, and told him my plan, everything. And then I was a bit afraid that, he would turn me in and tell the owner and the other guys, but actually he didn't say anything. He just told me, wait for a moment, I'll take my bag and I will come with you in the train. So it was about an hour and a half since I left the trolleys in that container. They were still there. So I was extremely relieved, when I took them back. I'm so glad that nobody took the trash. Yeah, I think I was very lucky. But in order to afford that flight to Cluj, I couldn't buy the hand luggage. I had only the backpack that I could take with me. So after those 25 hours that I spent over there, before going in the plane, I walked to one of the security guys of the airport, and I told him, hey, I have these big trolleys. There is plenty of clothes in it, there is plenty of cosmetics, shower gel, anything you have. You get there, just make sure that some people would take them, because I cannot afford to take them with me. And he looked at me with a very strange face, like I'm a little cuckoo. But I didn't have what to do with them. I didn't want to throw away the stuff I had, And I had that struggle with the container, and now I had to give them up, I was like, damn it. I go to Cluj at around 1 or 2 a.m. at night. This was beginning of February already, in 2017. And I had very little money left on me. I was hoping I could sleep in the airport in Cluj, and in the morning just go in the city center and take a bus from there. But I couldn't do that. The airport that they have there, Avram Yanko, I think it was called, is very small, and passengers weren't allowed to sleep over there, and no one was allowed to be there at all. And there was no coffee shop, no supermarket, nothing in the airport. So I got outside the airport, I found one of the security guys, and I told him, excuse me, can you show me in which direction is the city center of Cluj? And he told me it's that way, to the left side. And I said, thank you. And I just left. I just walked in that minus 20 degrees, almost 2 hours from the airport to the city center. And I luckily had enough money left to buy the bus ticket. It was like, I think, 5-6 hours ride. I had a really nice talk in the bus with the gentleman there. Then I got home, and I was very nervous to meet them, after all this long trip, after those 3 months of agony for me. I just met them and I was so embarrassed and ashamed of myself, like, here I am a failure, I'm home, I hope you're happy.
But that warm bed, that nice supper.
Yeah, they hugged me, very close. They seemed very happy that I was home, like extremely happy. I was surprised that they are so happy, because I was actually very depressed that I failed and I got home. My plan wasn't to fail, my plan was to succeed and stay there. And that very same day, after I got home, I texted that girl that I was in touch with, and I asked her where she is. At that moment it was in the morning, and she told me that she was in the city center with some friends and she is planning to go home soon. She was living in a village, so a bit far from the hometown. But I was trying to buy some time and talk to her and tell her to stay a little more, but I didn't want to tell her that I'm home, that I, left England and everything. I wanted to make it a surprise. And I borrowed some extra money from my parents, and I bought the biggest bouquet of roses that I found. Yeah, I don't remember how many it had, maybe like 20-30 roses, It was the most expensive bouquet I ever bought in my life, I'm telling you. I like to buy flowers, but this was a lot. And considering I was broke, I could barely afford anything. And I did that, and I was so happy about it, I just wanted to show her how much I like her and how much I want to be with her. And partially I quit my England trip to be back home to be with her. That's how we started dating. It took us about 3 months of dating before she decided to break up with me. I'm not very sure what happened there and why this happened, but yes, sometimes I guess it just happens.
What's more lonely? You going to there and being all alone in that Indian home/restaurant, or coming back to the girl and then she doesn't, it doesn't work? What's worse, like being stranded in a different country or breaking up?
To be honest, none of those moments was for me as hard and as lonely as those couple of months in Sheffield before going to the Indian restaurant in Braintree. But I am afraid of something else actually connected to loneliness. I am a little afraid that when I will die, after I die, I will be, lonely in the other world, wherever that is. I'm very afraid of that, I just think about it sometimes, and I have no idea how is the life after we die, I don't know what's happening. I don't know if it's like in the Bible that there is a heaven and there is a hell, and I would go to one of them. I don't know if there is something else, but I'm extremely frightened that I will be alone there, And as far as I know, they say that after you die, whatever happens to you, whatever you will be, either if that is a ghost or whatever else, it will be forever, right? Some people think that, especially Christians, that, after you die, you are forever there, in hell, in heaven, wherever. And this forever idea just scares the shit out of me, I don't know what I will do, how I will feel. It just scares me, but I think about it sometimes, So there is that, I think, to loneliness.